Hey guys, what up? Tominator here, and yes, you read that title right. Now, I know there's a lot of disgruntled people out there saying Big Ramy got robbed, or even William Bonac got robbed, and Phil Heath didn't deserve it. It was more bullshit politics at play. Well, we'll get into all that in a sec. First off, I want to focus on the positives, because what's been kind of lost in the shuffle amidst all this bubble gut controversy is what an entertaining event this turned out to be. So why do I think this year's Olympia was the best we've seen in years? In a word, competition, okay? Whether you agree with the final outcome or not, you have to admit that this was the closest contest we've had in a while. I mean, let's face it, if it wasn't so close, there wouldn't be so much damn controversy. Even if you're one of these people who thinks Ramy absolutely had it in the bag and got royally screwed, you gotta recognize there's a lot of diversity in opinions here. So I've scrolled through all the comments on my videos, and for every person saying Ramy got robbed, there's someone else saying the judges got it right and Phil deserved it. For every person calling me a Ramy hater or a Phil fanboy, there was another who said my analysis was spot on. Plus, there's even a sizable minority who think Bonac should have taken it. And for the record, man, I fucking love his side tricep, just so aesthetic here. The man has money in this shot. So, bottom line is that regardless of your own personal convictions, objectively speaking, this was a close fought battle, there's no two ways about it. The last time Phil was pushed like this was when Kai Green was still around, back in 2014 and 2012, and even then, it was only a two-horse race both times. This year, you could argue that Bonac was also right there, firmly in the mix, and many people claim he should have placed second instead of Ramy, or even first. And then there's Father Time, you can never count him out, aka Mr. Dexter Jackson. So he was actually Phil's biggest competition in the back poses, if you ask me. So that top four was extremely close here. And if you watched my review of that final call-out from the finals on Saturday, you may have noticed there were poses where I was genuinely struggling to pick out a winner. That back double bicep was pretty much too close to call. And that one used to be a total cakewalk for Phil. Even just a year ago, he was running away with it. But now, nuh-uh, the competition's closing in, nipping at his heels. So you gotta admit, in that sense, we had one hell of a show. And there was even some actual suspense when it came down to the wire with the final two. You know, Big Ramy was standing there alongside Phil, waiting to see who would be announced the 2017 Mr. Olympia. And look how anxious they both look. I mean, Phil even is biting his lips. So I won't lie, my heart was kind of pounding there in that moment. And that sort of climactic drama was sorely missing from the past 2 years. No offense to Sean Roden or Dexter Jackson, but neither one challenged Phil as much as Big Ramy did. And aside from the competitiveness, there were shakeups galore. So in my preview video leading into the show, I said that one of my biggest hopes this year was to see some fresh faces up there in that top call-out, instead of this same old predictable Phil, Dexter, Roden dynamic we've witnessed in recent years. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So we got to see some new guys step up to the plate and test themselves against the champ. So that was definitely refreshing to see something a little different at least. Plus, even though some big names like Cedric McMillan and Lionel Bayecki, arguably the two most aesthetic bodybuilders in the show right there, even though they might have come in pretty off and disappointed, there were at least three bodybuilders who really nailed it. William Bonac, Big Ramy, and Brandon Curry were all probably at their all-time best. So that was exciting to see. I mean, who would have honestly expected Bonac to wind up in the top three? I don't think too many people, aside from his family and friends and maybe some hardcore fans, would have predicted that. And I don't know about you, but I was shocked to see that Brandon Curry was able to reproduce his outstanding conditioning from the New Zealand Pro. So that was something I was really hoping for, but I certainly wasn't counting on it, you know? So that was a pleasant surprise. And speaking of pleasant surprises, finally, hallelujah, Big Ramy finally lived up to all his enormous potential and really came into his own this year. This was the Big Ramy we all knew he was capable of being, and he ended up jumping from fourth to second just like that, and rightfully so. So this is exactly who I wanted to see fill the void left by Kai and be the guy to threaten Phil, because he's the only one right now who truly has what it takes, I'd say. Now, I know a lot of you guys probably believe he got robbed. Another bodybuilding YouTuber certainly seems to think so. But in my opinion, this was not a robbery. It was very close to be sure, but nobody got robbed. I mean, to get robbed, you have to decisively, without debate, just clear as day, beat the champ, right? Just be vastly better than him. And that definitely wasn't the case, because even if you think Big Ramy won, it's not like he ran away with it. The biggest screw job in the whole contest, I'd say, was Brandon Curry placing 8th, but the top 4 placings were actually quite fair. In any case, it's really a shame there's so much bitterness and negativity floating around. I mean, we just witnessed the most exciting Mr. Olympia in years, and all you hear is people bitching and moaning about Phil's gut. Like, come on, man, get over it. I swear, it's like some of you people have never watched an Olympia before. I mean, this shit is nothing new. Bubble guts have been going on since at least the early 2000s, throughout most of Ronnie's reign. And when it wasn't a pregnant belly holding the sand out, it was usually a thick and blocky waist like Dorian Yates or Jay Cutler. Hardly much better. In my opinion, the only Mr. Olympias with decent midsections in the past 25 years or so have been Dorian and Ronnie, in their first 2 years only, though, mind you. Dexter in '08, arguably Jay in '09, although his waist was still rather wide there, and then Phil between 2011 and 2013. So I don't know what all this fuss is about now. Even Phil himself was worse in 2014 than here. Now, okay, I will admit the stomach situation was pretty damn ugly. There's no question about it. But should this contest really be won or lost on the basis of one body part? I don't hear anybody crying over the fact half these guys don't even have calves anymore. Admittedly, you could argue the midsection is uniquely important because it is, after all, the centerpiece of your body, and so if that's out of whack, it kind of throws off your whole proportions and aesthetics, and that's a valid point, totally true. But are the judges supposed to just ignore the fact that virtually every other muscle on his body was well developed and defined? I mean, did nobody else notice the improvements to this guy's hamstrings when he first came out in the individual prejudging? Dude's legs from the rear were freaking crazy, the best since Ronnie Coleman. But I haven't heard a single person praise him for that, because y'all can't stop obsessing over the gut. At the end of the day, a shitty midsection is a major flaw, to be sure. But it's not like anybody else in the open class really has a great one either. I mean, if it's not a bubble gut, then they're spilling over in the obliques like a muffin top, and just very few of the top 10 have a proper-looking streamlined six-pack anymore. In fact, if you pay attention, they're pretty much all distended to one extent or another. It's just that some keep it in check better than others. So if you demand to see truly trim waistlines in this day and age, and stomach vacuums and all that, then that's what the Classic Physique is for now. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't like the bubble guts either. It's far from ideal, and I'm not defending it. I'm not defending Phil's midsection because it was a wreck after all. I mean, especially when he relaxed between poses. But I am defending Phil Heath as a bodybuilder, because shit, somebody has to. But the rest of his body, it was great, and you can't deny that. And for what it's worth, I would actually argue that his herniated belly button is far more offensive than the distension itself. That nasty thing jutting out right there looks like a friggin' cow's udder almost. So that's way more disgusting to my eyes. He desperately needs to get that surgically repaired ASAP. And yet, for every person who mentions the belly button deformity, another 3 or 4 will bring up the bubble gut, yet again, ad nauseum. So, I mean, look, the bubble gut epidemic, it's bad for bodybuilding. I think we can all agree on that. Hell, I've made entire videos already devoted to criticizing these unsightly pot bellies and making fun of, people who defend it, when they hit a back double bicep and stuff. I think it's ridiculous people still say that that's the correct way to hit the pose, that they should have their stomachs protruding. That's perfectly acceptable. Okay. Anyway, so it is important to protest against this kind of thing so it doesn't continue to happen in the future, but I don't think all this overwhelming negativity and vitriol is necessarily helpful. At a certain point, it kind of crosses the line between constructive criticism and just plain hating and trolling. And when it comes to the open division, come on, let's be real. Some amount of stomach distension is practically inevitable now. I mean, that's just the price these guys pay for getting so big, unfortunately. And as I said, it's hardly anything new, as you can see here from this pic from the year 2000. I mean, it's been going on for almost 2 decades now. So if you have zero tolerance or can't stomach it at all, no pun intended, my advice is just don't watch it. Simple as that. Boycott this shit. Vote with your wallet, as they say. So if their viewership numbers suddenly drops in half, that'll force them to rethink what they're doing. You can believe that. But anyway, that's why they introduced the Classic Physique division last year, to bring back all these old school physiques like what we had in the 70s and 80s, because a lot of people prefer that leaner, more athletic look. And I can't blame them. I think that Classic Physique could prove to be the future of bodybuilding, a return to the golden era, taking bodybuilding back to its roots when it was an art form. Granted, it'll probably never surpass the prestige of the Mr. Olympia, given all its history, but at least in terms of mainstream popularity, yeah, I can definitely see this new division overtaking the open class one day. I just hope they give it a fair chance and start giving it better exposure and publicity and increase the prize money. Because I watched this year and, I was hella impressed with the physiques on display and all the aesthetic posing. but at the same time, they barely afforded them any screen time, and the broadcasters majorly fucked up by airing a commercial over top of Breon Ansley's, the eventual champion's, posing routine. So yeah, that was a joke. I mean, come on, figure your shit out, guys. Show some respect for these athletes, goddammit. Like, don't relegate them to some little sideshow. Give them at least the same amount of coverage as the 212 division. That's all I'm saying. So, anyway, let's get this thing back on track here and wrap it up. So, to recap, yes, despite all the controversy and even despite Phil's gut, I would say that this year's Mr. Olympia was still awesome, exciting, and highly competitive. And while Phil Heath repeating again was, in retrospect, almost another foregone conclusion we could all see coming a mile away, the overall placings of most of the top 10 were fairly unpredictable, so it was interesting to watch where all the chips ended up landing. And yeah, I mean, I did think that Phil still deserved this one. I can totally understand why the judges gave it to him in spite of the bubble gut, because he was just that good and well conditioned everywhere else. And conditioning is the name of the game. I mean, it's clear a lot of people don't agree with that. I'm kind of on the fence myself about it, but I mean, that is what the judges reward above all else now. So, and being really good in the back poses. So that's why he won, in a nutshell. But that's it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more. Until next time, homies, I'm the Tominator, signing off, and I'll be back.